What's up guys, it's Andrew at Motorcycles Offroad, and this is a video I like to do at least once a year. If you're anything like me, you're constantly scouring Marketplace. I'm looking at bikes, I'm looking at prices. I just get so interested in seeing what people have for sale, even though, I do buy a lot of stuff, but it's not all the time as much as the time I put into actually looking at Marketplace. But this video in particular, I like to go over some dual sports that are in my area, like a driving distance, something I would be willing to do in one day, like to go pick it up and bring it back, and then to show you guys basically what I have in my area and everything I would buy that's around $3,000 if you wanted to get into dual sport motorcycling, or if you had a friend that's into dual sport motorcycling, maybe even send him this video, because that's basically what we're covering. Now, of course, the disclaimer is the prices are going to be different based on your area, but, it fluctuates up and down. Now, besides just showing you some of the pick of the litter that I choose in my area, I like to go over what I like about the bikes and basically like a little mini review and some of my experiences with the particular bikes and why I would recommend them from one person to the next. So anyway, that's intro done. Let's just get into the video. Alright, of course, since I just did the CRF 300 Rally versus the DR650, we have to do the DR650. There's tons of these bikes out there. They've been around for a very long time, and hopefully they don't get discontinued in at least America anytime soon. But there is some older ones that you can find for very inexpensive. This one in particular I thought was interesting. It actually looks pretty clean. There's a couple things I would fix on it, but there's also a couple things I don't like. If you stop right there, you can tell that somebody cleared out the muffler here. So it probably sounds like garbage. I don't particularly like that. It is the kickstart model, which some people prefer that. It's more reliable, of course, less things to break, and if your battery's dead, it'll still start without an issue. But what I would do is, he only wants $25 for this, which I think is very reasonable, and the plastics don't look too bad. There's a little bit of scratches and wear, maybe some extra holes he punched here. But overall, this looks like a pretty good bike. I'd probably replace the front fender, and I would go to him and say, hey man, I'm going to have to put a new exhaust on this. And it's not unreasonable for somebody to come down 10% on asking price anyway. When people put up, a lot of times they put it high because so many people lowball them. And in fact, I bet you this guy would probably be happy if you came there with $2,000 cash. And that would cover your exhaust and probably a little screw that you put in the carburetor so you can adjust your fuel air back to what you need for this type of exhaust, or whatever your upgraded exhaust, Overall, I think that's great. There's another one I picked here. There's just something about these old DRs. They just last forever and they look cool. The only thing I don't like is the front fender and the light bulb, and of course sometimes these gaudy turn indicators. So you can get a quick fix, replace those, and the new front fender, and then put in a better bulb or a light replacement, and then you have a really great commuter bike that's also capable off-road. Now, he doesn't have many pictures here, and he's asking for $3,000. But what I do like and I enjoy is he starts it. Now, we don't know if it's cold or what it is, but it does start right up. So he might have already had it warmed up before this, but it looks like it kicks very easily. And overall, the bike looks pretty good. Normal wear and tear, but this is like a 30-year-old bike. I just wanted to show it because they're just great, and even that old, they're still going to run great. But let's look at something more modern. The KLX 250s, the S, they have really dropped in price. And you know what? They're great motorcycles. My buddy Tim has one, and when I compare the CRF 250L to the KLX, I actually prefer in the 250 line the KLX model. Adjustable suspension, they're generally pretty good out the gate off-road, and you can get them for pretty cheap. Now it's looking like $2,500, $3,000, and I think if you're getting into dual sporting, or you want a spare bike, or you got a buddy that's riding, you just can't go wrong with this motorcycle. They last for a long time, and they're just overall pretty great. Look at this one. This one I really prefer. So the 2006, if I remember right, is the first year they turned from the KLR 250 to the KLX 250. But we got Shinko 240 tires. We got pannier racks that go with it with hard boxes. This is a great bike overall. I really like this. As long as everything seemed kosher in person, this would be something I would be really interested in picking up. By the way, these Shinko 240s are my preferred 50/50 tire, actually. I really love them. I put them on my KLR 250 in the build I was doing on my Patreon, And they're great with rim locks because you can ride them all day long on the road. Then you can drop some pressure, and they do really well off-road for what they are. So overall, I think this is a great deal right here. Next, let's go over and look at some DR200s. Now, if you're a little bit on the shorter side of DR200, its seat height is about 33 inches or 840 millimeters, 845 millimeters, that would be, right? And we got a couple options here. This one for 25. The yellow for Suzuki is there's just something about it. What's that, some Kenda Trackmaster tires? Yeah, so he's got it set up. He wants to be a little more off-road here. But if you're looking to commute, these are great bikes for that. They get great fuel economy, and they're not too aggressive. Overall, I would say if you're looking for more off-road, you probably don't want one of these bikes. That's Suzuki's version of the TW200. The only problem is the way the foot pegs are orientated, and the bike's it feels a little weird when you take it off-road. It can be remedied. It can be fixed, of course, just like anything else of these older bikes that have been around for so long. There's so much aftermarket for it. But just out the gate, it's more of a local, around town, and great fuel economy commuter. All right, next, we could look at the DRZ400. And these guys have dropped in price over the past couple years. I remember 2 or 3 years ago, you couldn't find one in my area, at least, for under like $5,000. Now I have a couple right here, but this is the E model. We'll go into that in a second. This guy's set up for street tires and 11,000 miles. I wouldn't even worry about that. 11,000 miles is nothing on these bikes. Also another motorcycle where I have a full review on the channel if you're interested in the bike. And I compared the Z and the E in that review. It's kind of a blanket review of both. So if you want something out of the box, like I said, it's not unreasonable for him to come down 10% even. So maybe $2,900 or $3,000, you can get this great bike. Title in hand, it says. It looks overall pretty clean. I mean, the general wear and tear. But here's the thing about the E model. Now, the E model is my personal favorite when it comes to the DRZ. Now, what you're losing is a subframe. You don't have the subframe and you don't have street legality. But at least in America, if you want to get street legality, you could go to the Service Dirt Legal. It'd be like $500 or whatever it is. And they'll set everything up for you and you can make this bike street legal. Now, as far as mechanics-wise, it's very easy to work around on this bike. But the thing to note is this motorcycle, the E model, has a different carburetor, which gives it so much more pickup off the turn of the throttle. It just feels so good. And it also weighs about 20 to 30 pounds less, which is like 10 to 15 kilograms less on this bike than the S model. So it really, really feels great off-road. And they're good commuters too. But if you want something with a big luggage rack and all that, you might want to go with this bike here. But if you're looking to do day trips off-road, I think the E model is great. Now, just like my KDX 200, which you can do here, there's a little cap that you screw in right here, and it actually actuates through pressure that makes your brake light work. You already have a headlight. In my state, you do not need turn indicators, but you could wire them up if you needed them. And we use hand signals, and you need one mirror, and you could buy the cheap Trail Tech to go for your Speedo, and then this bike would be great. Overall, it's a super fun bike. Now, when I did this one, my KDX 200, I had a bit of a different issue. See, the KDX 200 is just a stator, so that's not actually direct current like a battery. It's alternating current, almost like a house light. So when you would go rev the throttle or something like this, the lights would get brighter or dimmer. With the DRZ400E, it actually has a battery in place, and it's on this panel. Actually, you can see it right there. This is the battery box here. So since it's already set up for direct current, all your lights and everything, they'll go right to it and they'll work fine. So when you're dealing with something that only has a stator, the stator is producing more energy based on your RPMs. Whereas you have something like this, you have a storage area where the energy is sitting. So regardless of how much you turn your throttle or not, and it's no longer fluctuating, it's keeping a constant power, so your brake lights will always work, your headlights will always work at the optimum level. So this bike is great for a conversion to an on-street mode, and in fact, other countries, when this bike was sold, like Australia, for example, I believe they did have the E model sold to them with modifications to make it street legal. So they already had the good version, whereas America, we have the S. All right, next, you can't go wrong with a KLR 650. Now, I have to be completely transparent. I have never rode a KLR 650. Okay? I've watched enough reviews and wanted to ride one enough to be able to tell you a little bit about them. But what I do know as far as adventure bike dual sports go, the KR650 is the best bang for your buck you can possibly get new off the showroom. That's what I can see from my analysis. But what I also know is they're dead reliable. And they're pretty good on the road. And they're a bit heavier. They're coming in between 400 to 500 pounds, somewhere in the middle there, depending on how you load it out, crash bars, etc. So they have heavy weight to them, which actually plays the role of being better on road, but it could be a little bit more the handle off-road. So with the KLRs, what you're really looking for is you can't have everything in a motorcycle, right? With them, you get great reliability, great price, and are pretty good on-road. Off-road, they might be a bit to handle, but if you just have service roads and stuff like that you want to ride down and you want to commute to work, the KLR 650 is the way to go. Now, this one I thought was pretty interesting. He says it runs and he hasn't started in a while, which is a common thing. People, before they know it, it's been a year or whatever, and then, you got to clean out the carburetor, put a new battery in, etc. Maybe just the battery, And, man, I feel like if we put some new bike in a can and we just polish this thing all up, this is kind of like a gem, especially since he's only asking $25 for it. I mean, I wish I had the money right now. I'd buy this right now, and you would see me on the channel with it, and probably a couple of months from now, we'd be doing a KLR review. And here's another one, and I thought this one was rather interesting. It looks like he did his own custom cut job here for his front fender, and then he bedlined the fenders and the tank, which some people do. You could argue it adds some weight. It would add a little bit of weight, insignificant when you're talking about a 450-pound motorcycle, but really it makes it resistant to any scratches or anything. But this one's set up great for a commuter. I mean, we already have our racks and our boxes. We have our crash bars. We do have a windscreen that is cracked. Personally, I would replace that windscreen. When I went to look at this, I would ask him about this. Like, hey, what exactly is the model of this windscreen? How much is it to replace? Let's work on that, because I really can't deal with that. Like, I don't want to crack in front of my face. So maybe take it off altogether if you can't reach a reasonable deal, or get a new windscreen. It's got LED lights, LED turn indicators, just a great commuter right here for $3,000. You can't beat it. This is everything I would want in this particular motorcycle that I would use for adventure type riding. I would probably never take this thing off single trail. As far as commuting to work and just enjoying life, maybe even two-up riding, this would be the bike I would use. $3,000, can't beat it. All right, here's a newer one. This one's a bit more money, but I wanted to put it here. Maybe he could come down on the price. You pitch in a little more money, maybe meet him at $35. This is a beautiful motorcycle. I really love Kawasaki's black camo. I mean, in all purposes, it's probably less effective at being seen, right? When you're pulling out with a black bike like this, it's harder to be seen. But that's why I wear reflective and bright clothing, right? But when I get off the bike and I step back and I look at the bike and I look at something like this, that's a mark of beauty to me. I know it's an older model and I know it has its blemishes. I can see them clear as day, but just looking at this bike, it just looks to me like it's ready to trash off-road. It's just ready to go. I love how they took this camo and they added it to the new fuel injection model as well. That would be something I'd be interested in buying. And I also like the black camo like this that they use on the KLX 300. That's a great looking bike too. So anyway, I wanted to throw this one in there. A little bit out of the price range for the video, but it's something I just wanted to look at and talk about. All right, so my list would not be complete without my beloved DR350. I know they're older, guys, but hear me out. This is one of the best motorcycles I've ever had as far as fun versus price versus, utility. They're just great. So this is the predecessor of the DRZ400, if you don't know. But what's so great about the DR350 is, for one, it had a 35-inch seat height, which is 2 inches lower than the DRZ, which for me is my favorite seat height. I love the 35. And then it also weighed under 300 pounds, and it has a 6th gear, and it produces horsepower around 30. So everything I want in a dual sport is on this motorcycle. The only problem with it is it's a bit older. Some of them are a bit trashed or beat up because they've been older and they don't have modern amenities. But if you find a clean one, or if you find one that just runs good and you're willing to look at the analog dash and stuff like that, this bike is amazing. And in fact, it looks like he has a trail tech. But I wonder if that's in his list of things here. Let's see. He rebuilt the forks. Wow, so much. Here we go. New digital speedo, LED headlights. Yeah, this is a great bike, guys. It might be a little much for 3,200 for a 1994, and I think it's 1994 is the kickstart model. I can't really tell, and maybe it's the electric start. I'm not sure. Either way, great bikes. There's a second one here. I want to show you this one. This one's a bit cheaper, so that's why I wanted to show you. If you just need a quick bike to pick up that's going to be able to do everything, he even replaced the front fender. What's this? Is tail tighty. So it used to have this big gaudy backlight. Let's see if we have it on the other one. Yeah, see the big backlight, and then this guy, he replaced it, put something over it. I mean, you put a bag there, it doesn't really matter, and he's got a little tail tighty kit. That's kind of cool. Yeah, overall, great motorcycles, great bikes. I love them. It's one of my favorite bikes ever made. Is the DR350S and SE, the electric start model. So, and it looks like he put some love into this one too. I'll take it. I wish I could just buy them all, right? Buy them all, put them in my pole barn. Let's just all go riding. It'll be a good time. Well, guys, these are some bikes in my area that I just wanted to show you guys. It shows that for, $3,000 or less, you can really get out there and find something awesome and get out riding. Also, if you haven't already, check out some of our DR650 content that I just made. I made like the past 6 videos. I think 4 of them are the DR650. I can put them in a playlist if you want, and I'll link it in the cards and the first comment below. So check that out. And if you want to support the channel, be sure to subscribe. And I added the join button so you can become a channel member or check us out on Patreon. Tons of free content over there. Tons of new content. As many videos as I'm putting here, I'm trying to put over there. So check it out if you want. And I hope you guys stay safe. My name is Andrew, and this is Motorcycles Off-Road. Thanks for watching, guys.